Just a minute. I think it'll take some 30 seconds. Right. So we are live. Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Entrepreneurs 11, which is a fireside chat with entrepreneurs from various walks of life. So with me is Mr. Prashant Srivastava. He is an eminent personality. He is the founder and CEO of the other two Thirds Consulting LLP and has worked with a host of corporates, illustrious corporates at illustrious positions. Welcome, sir, to Entrepreneurs 11.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jayesh. And thanks everyone for sparing time to listen to us. And thanks, Jayesh, for inviting me on the forum.
Thanks, sir. It's a pleasure to have you. So without wasting any more time, I think we can get into the first segment of the show, which I call Gully Cricket. So, sir, if you would not mind sharing something about your background, as in what has your personal life been? Where are you from? How was your childhood? How was your youth?
So, while I hail from UP, I never had an opportunity of living there. I was brought up in a place called Bilaspur that was in Madhya Pradesh back then, but now it is in Chhattisgarh. I did my schooling in Bilaspur. I went to Sainik School, Rewa, for a while, where I learned my discipline and rigor and stuff like that. And then I went to NIT Raipur. I did my mechanical engineering. I came to Bombay, joined Hindustan Petroleum. And then I realized that once the chief general manager, who used to be like demigod those days for people like us,
right.
For the junior most guys, he came to visit our terminal. I told him about our problems, etc., etc. And he kind of listened and went away. And nothing changed, and he came a year later. I said, no, what are your problems? I said, does it make sense to tell you what our problems are? Because you're going to go back and nothing's going to happen. The people were like staring at me because I was the junior most guy in the room and he was the senior most guy in the room. And they were like, he's gone crazy or mad or something. And I said, you know what? You're sitting in a glass house with microphone inside and speakers outside. And you speak and we listen. And we shout and yell and it doesn't reach you.
Right.
So he didn't say anything. He just went back and transferred me to some project on the border of Uttar Pradesh and Nepal. But my chief terminals manager, who was not really my immediate boss, but kind of immediate boss, there was somebody in between them, but in between us, but we would mostly interact together directly. He refused to release me, and that's how I got saved. Then I told my father that, this is what it is. So he said, ढोल में पोल है चिल्लाने से कुछ नहीं होगा. पोल में घुस जाओ, and then only you can make a change.
Absolutely.
You've got to be inside that corporate office to make that change. If you're outside, you can't change anything.
Can't change it. Absolutely.
Right. So that's where then I did my MBA from IIM-A, and I switched sides. I was with ACC and Cement House, and I tried to make a lot of changes, but again, I was too junior to make changes. And I was told 30 साल से यहाँ पे ऐसा ही हो रहा है और ऐसा ही होगा. Right? And for 30 years, we've been doing it like this and we'll continue to do it like this. So then I decided to switch to consulting. That's where, the CEOs and the chairman and all of that started listening to me. And that was a pleasant surprise at a young age. And that's where I thought I could actually do the changes that I wanted to do when I was with Hindustan Petroleum. And then I was into strategy consulting, and then I was into, I actually stumbled into HR consulting. So, like now there's this fad of 30 under 30, and I'm sure in a few years it will get to 20 under 20, and then it might get to 10 under 10. Then I don't know where will it get to. But yeah, so I was also part of that fad, and some search firm from Atlanta called me and said that no, Gallup is looking for an India head, and we are doing a global search and blah blah blah. And yeah, I said no, 40 under 40, let's do it. So I took the job up, and that's how I moved from business strategy to HR consulting, and then it started growing on me. I realized that strategy is just one thing. That's like 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. Strategy is that 1%, and 99% is implementation, which is all about people, which is all about their engagement. If they're not engaged, if leaders are not engaged, if the doers are not engaged, strategy is of no use, won't work. Even if strategy is half-baked, you have an engaged team, they will make something work out of it. So that's how then thereafter I continued in strategy and well-being space, from Gallup to Young Hewitt to then I was Group CHRO for Reliance Group, where when I joined, the average engagement was 52%. In 3 years' time, we took it to 82%. So with all that, armed with all that learning, etc., I really decided to do something which will not just benefit. So Gallup's a great organization. I learned most of it from them. Young Hewitt is a fantastic organization. They are hallmark of HR. But their cost structures, etc., are such that they have to focus on the billion-dollar plus companies. Like in this world and country, in this part of the world, in India, most of the GDP and most of the employment is created by mid-sized companies, right? Who fortunately now, because of banking inclusion and private equity and venture capital and all that, have access to money. But you need two capitals for the business: the financial capital and the human capital. And they lack on human capital. And I thought that if we were to address about 1,000 companies in the next 5 years, and let's say if the average number of people is 1,000 in each company, we'll be impacting the lives of 1 million people, 5 million employees, and 5 million people, including their families, and we could contribute to 1.4% of the GDP.
True. Fair.
That has been the journey.
Right. And I think what a journey it has been, and I'm sure miles to go before I sleep, as Frost said. So,
yeah, of course, yeah.
Sir, can you just pinpoint or just take us through that one incident which helped you decide or made you decide to get into entrepreneurship? What was that one thing that got you here?
So there were many things, but if you just ask me one thing, I remember that I had gone to this JK Paper Mills factory. Actually, we had gone to visit someone, a father's friend who used to work for JK Paper Mills. And I'd gone to see the factory along with my father.
Correct.
And I said that, I was studying in engineering college to be a mechanical engineer. I said, no, what a place. If only I were to get a job in this place.
Mm.
So my father said, no, you think very small. You should think that how do I set up
Mm. Mm. Mm.
a factory like this
Correct. Correct.
and I provide job to 5,000 people.
Right.
So I said, how can I do it?
Right.
I don't have the money, I don't have the experience. And so he said, yeah, you can get some experience, that is essential.
Correct.
But do you think any of these guys who are doing business are putting in their money?
Mm.
So once you decide to do business, you'll find money.
True.
So
True.
that was like always uh, at the back of my mind
Mm-hmm.
that, but it kept getting postponed
Mm.
because of my, you know, fear,
Right.
right? Fear of failure
Mm-hmm.
and need for financial security and compensation on the first of the month and family and children and education and all that. And therefore it kept getting delayed. And finally a day came when I said, no, it's now or never.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it happened.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fair, fair. And I think it is perhaps this one step, it is one small step that, took you to this path. And today here we are talking about this journey. So, sir, what we'll do is we'll jump into the second segment called Power Play, where we talk more about your entrepreneurship journey. So, what is the
Yeah.
ethos behind the other two thirds consulting? What is the core thought? What is the driving force?
So as I said already that no, the world has been discussing for not just in the last 6 months of COVID, but even before that,
Mm-hmm.
the whole slowdown and lack of GDP growth and
Right.
stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I recall, I think it was the third or the fourth habit of Stephen Covey,
Right.
where he says that there are two circles, circles of concern, circle of influence.
Right.
So that the GDP is not growing is circle of concern.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what is in my influence? My influence is that I help businessmen create engaged organizations
Right.
that
Right.
are going to be highly productive
Mm-hmm.
and which should contribute something to the GDP growth.
Correct.
So that was really the driving factor
Right.
to help this country, help these businesses, to help these people
Mm-hmm.
create growth for themselves and for the country.
Correct.
The the model, see, this major research on employee engagement was done by Gallup,
Right. Right.
and they did it maybe between 1970 and 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so strange that a lot of research went into employee engagement
Mm-hmm.
between 1970 and 1990 or 94. So in that 20-25 years, a lot of research went into it.
Right.
And Gallup came up with the thought that it's the managers who drive engagement,
Right.
which is very true.
Correct.
So Marcus Buckingham's book said that people join organizations and leave managers.
Mm.
Extremely true,
True.
right?
Right.
Hewitt came up with another model. God knows whether Hewitt came up with that model or Towers. They had spat over that model, and I think finally the court decided that the model can be used by both. But yeah, mm, I'm from Hewitt, so I will believe that Hewitt came up with the model. And uh, the model was focused on HR, and they said that HR processes drive employee engagement.
Right.
I differ a little. I say HR processes enable
Enable.
engagement. They
Right.
don't drive engagement.
Right.
Now, please see what happened between 92 and 2020.
Mm-hmm.
In these 28 years, 92 was the first time internet came into being,
Correct.
into commercial being in the US.
Correct. Correct.
Right? And then rest of the world.
Right.
Otherwise, it was a thing for the army and not really for
Fair. Fair.
civilian use.
Right.
Right? And that helped shrink the virtual distance between countries, economies, and all that. Right? In 1992, when I passed out from IIM-A, we used to have almost 12 to 13 levels of hierarchy in any organization.
Right. Right.
Today we have about 5 levels.
4 or 5. Right. Right.
So hierarchies have collapsed. So
Correct.
leaders are far more accessible than they were, unlike my chief general manager, who I saw twice in 2 years.
Yes, right.
Right? With no, I mean, there was no pressure on him to respond. But today, with internal and external social media, when the questions are being asked openly,
Correct. Correct.
not responding is not an option.
Not an option. Much more.
Because the world is saying, world is saying that you're not responding. And when you respond, you're creating a culture as a leader, and that can be engaging or disengaging.
Right.
So leaders have started playing a significant role. Social media, LinkedIn started in 2005.
Right.
Facebook in 2008 and 9.
Right.
Social media came to mobile in 2012. Right. So this has all these technological, environmental, legislative, economic compulsions have changed the world.
Right. Right.
Right. And therefore, the research that was done by Hewitt and Gallup was mostly on baby boomers.
Correct. Correct.
And then there were other models which are even older. 1969 model, etc., which are based on trust,
right.
Where the research was actually done on maybe silent generation, not even baby boomers.
Right. Right.
Right. And maybe generation before silent generation, which I don't even know the name of. Right. So, and unfortunately from 90 to 94 to 2020, in the last 25 years or so, there's been no research and no updation of these models.
Correct. Correct.
And that's where businesses are quite frustrated. They're creating their own models, which are neither validated nor benchmarked and all of that. So we put together all my learning of the past 20 years.
Right.
And we created a multi-generational model.
Right. Right.
Called well-being and engagement.
Correct.
Key differences from the earlier models is the inclusion of well-being, inclusion of purpose, inclusion of passion, inclusion of peacefulness.
Right.
Or lack of negative stress. Correct. And politics.
Right.
Right. So those are things that have really propelled me to create a new model. And there is no effective utilization of new technologies like AI and ML to predict performance, predict attrition, etc. And those technology companies who are trying to use AI ML, they don't have a model.
Correct.
If you don't have a model, what will AI ML learn from?
Right. Right.
Right. So therefore, there was a need. There was this space that was available between those who had modeled, though they were antiquated, and those who had technology but did not understand the function and the science, to have a combination. That's what we created. Right. And we believe that this is highly scalable. While our focus currently is India, and we want to help Indian businesses to drive growth for themselves, drive wealth and peace for their employees, and contribute to the economy. We're saying, why do we need to be selfish to contain it in India? So we're planning to next year take it to multiple countries outside India.
Right, right. And I'm sure this model will find acceptance, because as of now, at least with these generations, well-being has become a much more important phenomenon. Yeah. So, sir, what I wanted to ask you also was that, obviously you would have evolved a lot throughout your journey from a PSU guy to an MBA to leading two of or three of the most renowned consulting firms and then into entrepreneurship. So, what is the one most surprising thing that has changed in your worldview after you became an entrepreneur?
Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, so I was saying that in your worldview, what is the one thing that has changed, or what has changed in the way you think after you have become an entrepreneur that is most surprising to you?
That is most surprising to me. Um, well, some things that I didn't quite think about and plan for
Mm-hmm.
is that, you know, the biggest challenge
Right.
would be attracting the right talent.
Correct. Correct.
Correct. It's not about attracting the money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, no, right now we bootstrap, we are investing on our own,
Right.
but there are enough and more people who keen on investing in us.
Correct.
We want to get to a level where we get a decent valuation before we take external money. So
Right.
financial resource is not a constraint.
Right.
The constraint was human resource,
Mm-hmm.
but that got solved uh, for us sooner than later.
Right.
It didn't happen on day zero.
Mm-hmm.
And because what happened was that we ended up creating a family,
Right. Right.
the other two-thirds family, uh, where a lot of my ex-colleagues and friends joined me,
Sure. Sure.
right? That created a sense in the ecosystem
Mm-hmm.
that this is something worth joining,
Right. Right.
right? And that's where the youngsters and people like yourselves from IIM Raipur, etc., have joined us.
Correct. Correct.
And finally, this is the young team which is driving the business, not me. It is
Right.
really their contribution in terms of creating technology, in terms of creating business, in terms of you know
Hmm.
helping me
Scale.
dust and tie up the model
Correct.
and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So they are doing a fantastic job, and we are quite fortunate that in about 6 to 12 months of starting off, we are 24 months old.
Right.
In 6 to 12 months of starting off, we started attracting very good talent, and
Correct.
that I would say is because of my friends and colleagues who joined me.
Right, and I think this is perhaps the one model that cannot be replicated, which becomes a natural competitive advantage, even if you don't see it like a competitive advantage. Um, Attracting talent vis-a-vis attracting capital, if you ask people, they would say that okay, attracting capital is a bigger problem. But in your case, as highlighted, attracting talent became a bigger problem, and that was solved as well through this model. So I think that probably did wonders for you. Um, I was curious actually when I was actually thinking of inviting you for the show. I was going through your profile and I was seeing that you are still doing a bit of everything. So you have not limited yourself just to running one company, no matter how important it is. So you do teaching, you do speaking. There are a lot of engagements. So how do you manage this? How do you bring yourself to? How do you drive yourself to this?
So for me, this is not work.
Hmm. Right.
For me, this is my first hobby,
Hmm.
right? So I love what I do, and
Right.
I do what I love.
Right.
I know my message to all the youngsters on the call is that you should do what you love to do.
Hmm.
But if you don't get to do what you love to do, start loving what you get to do,
True. True. So
right?
love marriage or
So,
arranged marriage?
big one,
I'm saying love marriage or arranged marriage. Either one.
either way, no, you're better off loving your spouse,
True.
right? So I end up working 12 to 14 hours a day from Monday to Saturday,
Right.
and Sunday I take half day off, and that's how I'm able to. I'm also teaching on some of the IIMs, etc. And I was also giving a session for faculty on data science and data analytics and HR.
Right.
And I'm also, I've been speaking on various webinars of NHRD and CII and all of that.
Right.
One that in a way is also part of business, because the business needs visibility.
Right.
Still, our and our name for the model is We Matter, Wellbeing and Engagement Matter.
Right.
Till We Matter is completely established, we will need to leverage my brand equity.
Correct.
Which means that my brand equity has to be constantly nourished.
Correct.
Right? Because as Hegel said, something that doesn't go up is actually going down.
Going down.
You might see that it is stable, but it's actually going down.
Right.
So therefore, it has to constantly go up. So we constantly monitoring. So I have colleagues who are doing social media marketing and digital marketing for us. Right. They're constantly monitoring my visibility and all of that. And so they tell me to do these things, and I kind of obey them and do it.
Right. But I think your work, I'm sure this is a cynical world, so marketing means a lot. But I think your work speaks for itself, and people like us keep talking to you because of the body of work that you've done. So we move to our third segment, sir, which is Silly Point. This is kind of a rapid fire, light-hearted round. So I'll just ask you a flurry of questions. If you could just answer them one by one, that would be fine. Right. So what is your go-to piece of literature that helps you introspect?
So it's a lot of behavioral science. So the two authors are Richard Thiel Kahneman, the two Nobel Prize winners, and a lot of books written by Gallup, written by Gallup consultants, published by Gallup Press, and a lot of Harvard Business Review articles and Harvard Business Publishing books.
Fair.
Mostly centered around well-being, engagement, purpose, and behavioral economics.
Behavioral economics. Great. So, what is the one thing that you fear is going to change with you in time? So, if let's say we are talking about Mr. Prashant Srivastava 10 years later, what do you think is going to change in you, or that might change in you, that you don't want to change?
So I really don't think that anything is going to change, because the one thing that I fear is that if I stop working, I might become cynical, because then I will have only circle of concern and no circle of influence, and therefore I don't intend to stop working. And now I tell my colleagues that either we're going to sell this company off, or they're going to run it. That's really their choice and not my choice. And after this, my next project is already planned out, which will be, this itself will take 5-7 years. And the next project is on education, which will take me another 10-15 years. So by then, perhaps I'll be finished. Hopefully, I'll be finished.
You have a long journey planned, and you'll have to see the fruits of it live. So, what is your guilty pleasure? What is the one thing that you do on a lazy day?
So I kind of sleep. I go for a long drive because I'm short of sleep the whole week.
Right.
So I kind of take that time to make up on the sleep. And I like to go for a long drive, which has been a little bit curtailed because of COVID, etc. And yeah, that's it. That's it. No, occasionally I watch some movie on Netflix, but that's quite occasionally.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned your first hobby is your work. What are some of your other hobbies?
Beg your pardon?
I'm saying
Other hobbies.
other
So
hobbies.
other hobbies, no, I haven't got time for that now. But my hobbies are playing chess and photography. So I
Right.
love landscape photography.
Oh.
And I love excursion. So I love driving down to mountains and capturing mountains and sometimes see in the camera. Yeah.
Right. Right. So, what is your favorite holiday destination?
What is my favorite holiday destination? Um, Sikkim.
Sikkim. Great. 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 So one compliment to you. Most of the people go for an outdoor or a foreign destination, but sticking to vocal for local, I think is a great choice.
So
Yeah.
I've been to Switzerland. I've been to Leh Ladakh. I've been to Alps and all of that. But I think amongst all, I like Sikkim the best.
Correct. No, fair point. Fair point. It's a fabulous place. So, your favorite author of all time?
My favorite author of all time.
Yeah.
Um, Jack Welch.
Jack Welch. Okay. Monument. You can learn a lot from reading his books.
So the biggest and the best thing about the whole book that I liked is focus, focus, focus.
Right.
Right. Rather than digress, digress, digress.
Correct. And difficult as a writer to not digress, right? To give into your writer's instincts. Your okay, yeah. So your favorite chess player of all time and current, both.
So current, I am not following too much, but all time, I would say Bobby Fischer and Spassky.
Fisher and Spassky. Okay. So I have two more questions for you in this segment. One is that so regarding the Indian society in general, because you have a vast experience and you've seen life as it has changed from generation to generation. So if there is one thing that you could change in the society in general, what would that be? Or if you would wish to change in the society, what would that be?
Education.
Right. Okay. Fair.
And I differentiate between education and degrees.
Correct. Absolutely. I think it was perhaps, I don't remember, one gentleman had mentioned that I am looking for engineers, not engineering graduates. So I think what you are saying is on those lines. So, and if this change happens, then nothing like it. Yeah. So last question in this segment. If you become the minister who's responsible for startups or entrepreneurship in India, what would be the first step that you take?
First step.
Yeah.
Actually simplify doing business. No, not make it ease of doing business, but simple to do business. Right. Cut out how much can startups steal. Right. Let them steal as much as they can. Okay. And why let them steal? And now say any startup. Right. For first 10 years, there's no GST. There's no income tax. So there's no need to steal.
Correct.
There's no compliance required. in 1 year, I fill 47 returns, right? My single biggest expense for one person
Right.
is not for one of our high-tech employees, but for our CFO, right? In the first year when I hardly had any revenue, I paid 10% of my revenue to the CFO, right? That's how easy it is to do business in India, and that's how we intend to create startups in this country.
Right.
Why US has always been ahead for the past 50 years or more economically compared to any other country is because they have actually made it easy to do business. So I will just do three things. One, for all startups, I will say no income tax for 10 years, no GST for 10 years,
Right.
and no form filling for 10 years. You will have to file one return in a year.
Right.
Right? Now, the amount of money that the government will lose, the gains will be disproportionately high
Of course. Of course.
because you will attract so much investment in entrepreneurship, the global venture capital, private equity, and all that, which and now the consumption of these services,
Right.
right, will create secondary and tertiary impact on GDP, and the tax collection will go through the roof,
Right. Right.
right? It's like whether you want to, cut the
Right.
uh, golden goose or you want to let it
Yes.
lay egg,
Right. Right.
right? And enjoy the benefits of eggs. So
Right.
three things, very simple, no rocket science, no
Correct.
income tax, no GST, no
No.
compliance.
Great. And I think I'm sure you don't have. I'm not sure if you have political ambition, but vision like this would definitely benefit the startups at large. So we move on to our last segment, sir, which I call slog overs, right? So I just have a few questions on. So here we discuss actually some gyan about from your experience to young entrepreneurs. So one, I wanted to pick your brain on the two most important skills that you think aspiring entrepreneurs, whether young or old, should have in them.
You're saying aspiring entrepreneurs, young or old, should have
Yeah,
two skills.
yeah. So
Uh,
according to you, which are the two?
very high level of perseverance,
Okay, okay.
and if you have decided to set up a shop in India, then very high level of tenacity and resilience,
Right.
right? And if you can afford to set up a shop outside India, please do that.
True, true, true. So tenacity and perseverance, fair, fair. Two most important qualities. So one thing or your one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs as far as dealing with failure is concerned.
Uh, See, entrepreneurship is about risk, right? And embedded in the risk is failure.
Correct, correct.
So that is reasonably natural. And therefore, no, I was reading this article in one of the HBR issues
Right.
about experimentation. So do small experiments.
Right.
And as Mohan B. Sahni says, uh, the professor of e-commerce in Harvard Business School, that start small, fail early, and scale fast.
Right.
So in our firm, everyone is free experiments,
Right.
right? They have to define the milestones, they have to make it short, and either the experiment succeeds or fails.
Right.
If it fails, just jump it and move on to the next experiment.
Right.
If it succeeds, take it and run with it and scale it up.
Right. So start small, fail early, and scale fast. Very important. Yeah. Very important. This is perhaps my last question of the segment and of the show, but I want to spend some time on it. So typically, entrepreneurship is seen as an umbrella term, but it varies from product, service, and hyper specialized services like consulting. So, what has been your experience as far as entrepreneurship in consulting is concerned, and how do you think that is different from typical entrepreneurship?
Entrepreneurship in consulting is concerned, and how is it different from typical entrepreneurship? Okay, so I think entrepreneurship in consulting and the way we building it, our delivery mechanism is technology.
Right.
So while we are building a network of consultants to provide support of in-person, but 70-80% is self-help technology, right? So, the product or service business is about creating and selling a product.
Correct.
And consulting is about enabling these companies to create and sell products and services, right? So the leverage from an economy perspective that consulting startups can provide may be huge. The revenue may not, but the impact on revenue of a number of companies may be very significant.
Right.
The challenge in a consulting startup compared to a product or a service startup is that if you look at conventional consulting, the outcome, however well defined on piece of paper, cannot be experienced before going through the process.
Right.
Whereas a product or service can be experienced before going through the process. So there you exactly know what you're buying, and you can compare it with other products and services and take a bit of a rational decision. But in consulting, since the outcome is nebulous, the preference of people is to go with a plan.
Correct.
Right? So that at least if something fails, it fails more often than not, the person who took the decision can say, hey,
I got the best.
I had the best. Now they goofed up. What can I do? Right? And therefore, to overcome this barrier, what we've done is we have kind of productized our consulting.
Okay.
So we can demonstrate to you or to anyone or to a prospective client what they will get on a fictitious demo company, demonstration company. So they exactly know what they will get. Right now, the data is dummy data that will get replaced by their data.
Right.
So the entire analytics, entire predictive, entire prescriptive, and all of that is already there on the portal. You have a look at it. It will get replaced by what is relevant for you. The training programs are already there. You can try them out. Right. So 80% you know what you're getting. 20% the action planning workshops or the project management and the program management and all that is the only variable that you may not know. So that is the big difference, and that's how we kind of know. So yesterday I got a call from a friend of mine who set up a startup in New York, and he said that no, he's struggling with it. And I said, see, there are three things.
Right.
One is concept selling, which is the nebulous part and convert it into a product.
Right.
Second is need for the brand. So figure out a segment which is more functional conscious rather than brand conscious. Now, who will that segment be where two people decide?
Correct.
Where there's a committee decision, it's always playing safe rather than maximizing.
Right.
Right. So figure out your segment right, convert your product from nebulous to real. And the third thing is figure out what others are not giving. And therefore the pain points of the customer, and how do you bridge those pain points.
Correct.
And fourth, but well, not that critical, but still quite critical. How do you bring down the investment for your client?
Right.
Right? Or simply put, how do you bring down the price point and disrupt the market?
And I think these are quite insightful. In fact, what I heard you say is that, even if you are able to project in a manner that the uncertainty of the decision reduces, then you have actually made the uncertainty of the person taking the decision reduces. It actually makes them much more convinced about the brand. So I think that's a wonderful insight. Sir, any final words, any parting words for entrepreneurs, and then we can close it off.
Yeah, so I would kind of urge the youngsters to what I could not do, to shed their fear and take to entrepreneurship sooner than later.
Right.
Now there will be people who will succeed immediately after college and all of that, but I would still say that these guys would be a little rare. Right. There's a research done by a US university on the census of companies rather than on a sample of companies. And what they've come up with that the startups whose founders were average age 55 succeeded more than those whose average age was 45 versus average age of 35. Right. And they came up with reasons why. So, the network and the experience and knowledge and blah, blah, blah. So I'm saying that you don't have to really wait till 55. You can actually do it at 35. Right. And if you definitely need that experience, if your business calls for that expertise, hire that expertise. Right. Hire that expertise, because no country ever grew because of the number of people who were looking for job. Countries who grew, they grew because of the number of people who took to enterprise and who were not satisfied with creating a $100 million company and saying, काफी profit हो रहा है, 20 बच्चों के लिए काफी है. No, that is the first pillar that you pass. The first thing is take care of your home, take care of your family, take care of your wife, take care of your children. But that shouldn't stop your ambition or aspiration from becoming a $1 billion company and then a multi-billion dollar company, etc., etc. Right. And I recall a discussion with Mr. Ajay Piramal. We were discussing some engagement plans. We had already worked for them for 2 years. we're discussing something for the following year, and next day I read in the Economic Times that the company is sold. That was Piramal Healthcare, which became Abbott Healthcare.
Right.
So I called Mr. Piramal and I said, no, I want to come and meet you. And I congratulated him. And I said, no, obviously, if next day it came in a newspaper, you knew previous day that
Absolutely.
the deal. So he said, no, so why did you spend 1 hour of your time planning of everything, the HR and the engagement piece for next 1 year?
Right.
So he said 3 things. One, till the deal is inked, it is not inked.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Two, whether I am selling it or I'm running it or somebody else is running it, right? Engagement is required, people are required, right? And whether I plan it and somebody else executes it or whichever way, that process shouldn't stop.
Right.
And three, he said, I don't build businesses for selling.
Right. Right.
I build businesses for running it till eternity. It so happens that somebody comes and gives me a value for the business, which then doesn't leave me a commercial space to operate it, because the value is so high that by running the business, I can't make that kind of value for foreseeable future. So finally, I'm a businessman and I sell it. So 3 things I learned from him. One is build businesses for eternity. If you get a good value, sell it. Don't build business for selling it. Right. Second is don't believe in deals till they're inked.
Correct.
Third is even if you've inked it, don't stop running the business till you've handed over the baton.
True. I think the third one quite important in this era of deals and equity and all of that. Sir, I think with this we come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for taking out time and sharing your insights. It was a lovely session, and we hope to meet soon and discuss a lot of things further. But that's it for today. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into the show.
Thank you, Jayesh, and thank you, friends. Thanks a lot for sparing your time.